Have him on, and I bet he's a lovely person. That's the thing.
You should have him on.
By the way, I would. He has an open invitation. Open invitation.
Look, he's got Jesus on his shirt.
He's led a full life, and there's something about someone who has led a full life. This man has led a full life. There he is. He looks like Beetlejuice
General
from Howard
butt
Stern.
naked. Wow. Crazy. Imagine seeing a dude naked with his dong flopping, running at you with an AK-47 with kids' blood all over his face.
I mean, that's disturbing. But I imagine that there are very rich people in our country seeing that and paying good money to see it.
Well, one of the things that we were talking about with before the show started, we were out in the hallway. We were talking about how there's a giant chunk of the world that's fucked.
Yeah.
And what's coming into England, it's not unusual for other parts of the world. You know, if you go to Karachi, that's what life is chaos. Yeah. Just chaos is making its way into these protected bubbles, and that's what's freaking people out.
We live in a very privileged, even the poorest and the worst, which is obviously, it's not to minimize their struggles. But if you go to any of those third world countries, you're very aware of how privileged you are to live in a Western country. And, it also makes a lot of sense why the people in those third world countries would want to leave them and go to other places for opportunity. And I think immigration's had a lot of positive impacts on America, and it's had a lot of positive impacts on Britain and other countries. And it's not the idea that immigration is all bad or all good. It's the idea that, you have to do things a certain way because, societies are fragile. This is what we're learning. We're learning that societies are more fragile. When I grew up, that wasn't a common thought, that our society was very fragile.
Right.
We thought it was very strong.
Right.
We actually thought nothing could break us. And then you look at a couple of years of a pandemic, and most of the downtowns of the American cities don't look the same. Commerce has changed in a dramatic way. The Iran war proved that, militarily, our military is obviously brave men and women. They're amazing. But the changing nature of warfare has made military campaigns very difficult. It's hard to look at this Iran war as a victory. It's almost impossible unless you're completely dishonest. I don't think anyone is looking at it as a victory. So I think our vulnerability to threats, foreign and domestic, we are more aware of that now than we have ever been, how fragile societies are. So when you demographically change a society very quickly, which has never happened historically, it took wars, long periods of immigration. Now it's overnight. People have to adjust to a new cultural and sometimes economic reality. That's a very disruptive thing. And societies are very fragile. And you've got to be very careful about how you alter and change a society, because if you do it too quickly, there's a tremendous backlash. And you have to make sure that people want it changed, that people are on board with it. Not everyone. No one's on board with everything. But if you went to a lot of people in these countries that live in the bigger cities, they would probably be very pro-immigration. And because immigration has a lot of clear benefits to them. They get food delivered all the time. They have access to a wide variety of goods and services that immigrants bring. A lot of them are awesome. A lot of great food, So obviously... But again, if you went out into the suburbs and you went out into areas where the economies have stagnated, areas where maybe you've had scandals like this, grooming scandal and things like that, Sweden, whose crime rate has skyrocketed because you've brought in a lot of people from other places that are selling drugs, and not all of them, obviously, but if you look at that, and those people have a much more negative view of it because they don't connect the benefits of it, because they don't feel them in their life.
Right. They were living pretty sweet.
They were living good.
Yeah.
They were living pretty sweet. They were riding their fucking bicycles and eating herring.
Pretty safe out there.
Pretty safe and doing what they wanted to do. And then, you have this influx of people. You now have real poverty. You now have a lot of people.
You also brought in people that came from a war-torn part of the war.
A war-torn country.
Yeah.
And not everyone's going to be General Butt Naked, who becomes a Christian pastor and is probably lovely. Now, you probably see him in HEB, you're like, sweetheart, ate a few people, children maybe, but now it's better. That guy, not everyone's going to convert. Not everyone's going to be, you're going to bring people in that are, people are products to an extent of their environment. Like we all are. So the idea that women have less rights in these countries. So the courtship rituals in these countries are different. The familial relations are different. That's just the way it is. So, and a lot of people there like that. So, why would those beliefs and systems of change just because you happen to be living in Ireland?
Right.
Why would you think Irish women or British women would necessarily or inherently get more respect than your wife's daughters, sisters, whatever? And I'm not saying that it's all like throughout the entire Islamic world. I think there's a lot of diversity in the Muslim world. And there are lots of countries where there's arguments that women are safer than they are in America. But there's a lot of countries where that's not the case. And women have far fewer rights and it's pretty barbaric. And I don't know why those attitudes would change when they are just in a different physical location.
The spectacular bizarreness of it is that the really kind left-wing people who oppose toxic masculinity,
right,
oppose this sort of society that we're talking about, this male-dominated society. Like, you're inviting in something that literally has that as its doctrine.
Well, they think it can be tamed. So here's the thing with those people. They love a challenge. This is the I can fix him version of it. And to an extent, cultural attitudes do change over time. People do assimilate to certain practices. That's not a completely ridiculous thing to think. But they really believe that once all of these people come to these countries and see how great it is to be a childless 40-year-old woman working in data entry at a large faceless corporation that's gay on Pride Month, the corporation goes gay, and when they see how happy she or he or they is living in a society where you don't own anything. You know what's interesting about family? I just spoke to a comedian who went on a world tour, and he was in India, and he was talking about how poor people in India don't live on the street, they live in slums, which it's better. It's better to live in slums than the street, because a lot of poor people are with their families, and they won't cast their family out. Family in America almost means like nothing. Like we've everything's such an individual pursuit that family means nothing. And like that's reinforced. Like I am in an argument with my father. His wife has different political views on certain things. So we haven't spoken in a little bit. My cousin's getting married. And I have a therapist now that I've had for 6 months who I don't know if it's good or I don't know if you ever know if a therapist is good or not. And I told my therapist, my dad and his wife are going to be there and I haven't spoken to them, but I love my cousin and I want to support her marriage. I want to go. And my therapist goes, well, you don't have to go. So my therapist goes, if you feel like it's going to make you happy, go. So therapy in our country has become a way to kind of enable like sick people to just become selfish psychopaths. And family in America means almost nothing. And it is reinforced how little family means because like doctors will tell you, yeah, fuck it. It's your father. Who cares? So it's basically a thing where like, I think when you go to these other countries and you realize how deeply rooted a lot of things are in family and culture and tradition. And then we come from a country where like almost very little is. I'm not saying people don't have great families here, but like, America is about you. And it's not about, if you don't agree with your sister, fuck her. If your mother disagrees with you, block her. That's our country. And in other countries, that's unheard of. Like that's unheard of. Like it doesn't happen. And the comedian was explaining to me, like in India, there's like a lot less of a drug problem in certain areas, and he was wondered why, and he goes, well, people don't want to do drugs to like disgrace their family, even poor people. Even poor people will be like, I don't want to be a drug addict because my family's going to think bad about that.
Wow.
Whereas here, there's people that'll shoot up in front of their parents. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just a different. Culturally, we've gotten to this point where people are having less children. Family means very little. So then, what has replaced that? It's clearly the state and corporations
and ideology.
So they've replaced families and communities.
Well, the ideology is your community because you're online most of the time.
Yes.
And a giant percentage of the interactions you have with people is on social media.